Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for another episode of The Real World of Sales. To take a look at the real people out there doing some really unusual, amazing things with our amazing host, Ashley V. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks, Paul, and everybody. It's good to be back. We have an awesome show today. And first off, though, I just want to give a shout out to our new amazing sponsor, Knox Kitchen. They were actually selected as one of the top restaurants in Westminster. And they have delicious Laos food. It's really fresh meals. You can order online. You can eat at the restaurant. So you guys go check it out. My favorite meal to get there is the coconut chicken noodles, and I can order about 5 of them, eat it all. It's super delicious. So go to their website, Knox Kitchen, NOKS Kitchen, and check it out.
Okay, and this is Laotian food, right? From Laos,
Yes.
right next to Thailand and Vietnam. And I don't know, I don't think I've ever had Laotian food before. I don't know how it's any different than
Yeah.
Thai food or
hmm
Vietnamese food.
It's similar, but it's a little bit different. It's tropical, and it's healthy, and it's super delicious.
Well, I'll tell you what is, again, super delicious to us to hear is your guest that you brought on here today here. I inherited a house
Right.
out in the Palm Springs area 10 years ago. My parents lived in it for 20 years and came from the Midwest. And you quickly discover if you go out to the Coachella Valley out in the Palm Springs area, there is an iconic event way before there was Coachella. There is what we used to call the Dinah Shore Classic and the whole weekend that was built around it. You have one of the founders of that whole Dinah Weekend, the founder of that
Yes.
Dinah Weekend. Bring her in. Let's
Right.
talk.
Yeah, we have the fabulous Mariah Hanson, and she knows how to party, everyone. Yeah, thank you for being here, Mariah. You have an amazing story, so we want to hear all about it.
Awesome, and thank you, Paul, and thank you actually for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, Mariah, why don't you get started telling us, where you grew up, where you're from, and how you became an entrepreneur?
Sure, I grew up in Mill Valley, California, a small suburb right outside of San Francisco. My grandfather was a Greek immigrant, and he helped found the first Greek Orthodox Church in Marin County. And I think my first flirtation with entrepreneurship was selling raffle tickets for my grandfather at the Greek festival, to be honest with you, at about like age 10. And I would sell a record amount of raffle tickets to help raise funds for the church. That's how I
Oh
started
my
my
gosh.
career.
Wow, so that kind of influenced you then for the festival industry, probably.
Sure. Also, it didn't stop there. I had a paper route. I sold Best Line soap door to door. I was just, I would go to the flea market every weekend and trade up. I started out with some little tape recorder. I ended up with a mini bike and two bikes and a guitar, and I just had this knack
Wow.
for,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think I was a born entrepreneur, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
It
it
comes
sounds like
naturally.
it. hmm
Yeah.
Right, and so, and then how did you ended up starting the Dinah? What's the story behind that?
Sure. I threw parties in college, and they were very well attended, and it was a natural segue to enter the professional event market. And I did that in 1991, or actually, sorry, 1989. I started throwing nightclub events. I would go walk up to a nightclub that I knew wasn't doing well on a Friday night, but maybe it was packed on a Saturday night or a Wednesday or a Thursday night, and I would say, "Hey, let me have the door. You take the bar, and I will pack your club on this night that you don't do well on." And they like, there's nothing to lose there, and I would pack the club. And that's how I got
Wow.
my
hmm
career in the kind of nightclub event genre. And that segued into the Dinah Shore weekend and producing a very upscale, far-reaching event using sponsors, using national recording artists, and getting thousands of women together to celebrate in the perfect city to do this in, Palm Springs, California.
Right, right, definitely. And so, how did you like what kind of problems did you have to deal with when you were creating, your business as entrepreneur? Were there any challenges you had to deal with and overcome?
Sure, first year out, I had huge problems. I booked this really incredible hotel called the Racket Club, and they canceled my contract probably 2 months before the Dinah. I honestly, looking back, I don't think they thought I had the experience to pull off a buyout of a hotel. And they were probably right, although they also didn't know who they were dealing with. And so
Hmm.
I found another hotel as quickly as I could, and I sold out of that hotel, and I sold out of a second hotel after selling out of that one, and I booked the Palm Springs Museum and threw one of the most amazing parties in that beautiful iconoclastic space. And so a career was just born.
Wow.
It was a
Yeah.
huge success,
Hmm.
our first weekend,
So,
and that was 32 years ago.
right. Wow. So it just, you kind of just like happened to start the Dinah in Palm Springs, or did you choose the city, the area?
There were small parties that were going on before I came out, but they didn't have the kind of vision I think I brought to it, that recognized that there were a lot of ingredients in place, and if that formula was massaged a little bit, it could really take off. And I think my instinct was right, and that is what happened. And part of that key was being able to have the courage to do a hotel buyout versus 50
Hmm.
rooms in a hotel. Much safer to do 50 rooms. Buyouts are very dangerous contracts to get into because
Sure.
hotels aren't
Hmm.
super forgiving. Um, but that's what
Hmm.
I did, and so I created a whole inclusive, queer girl world, and then threw in entertainment and sponsorship and activities and pool parties and concerts, and it just worked.
Right, right. No, I mean, that sounds amazing. So, and then, like, when did you realize that your business could grow and be such a huge success to where it is now?
Sure. I think I realized it the first year that I hit some kind of a nerve, and it just resonated, and the response to the event was humongous. And so it just launched a second year and a third year, and I'm the kind of person that I'm going to take something and go, how can this be better? I don't
Right.
necessarily
Hmm.
think you need to tinker with formulas if they work, but I think you can always make your event better. That's part of your job as a producer, is to reinvent as you go and to also lead. So we've had the opportunity to reinvent. We've also had the opportunity to lead, to say, like, currently, we're really taking a strong stance on the trans world, that we
Hmm.
need to be inclusive. We can't, as people, ask for tolerance and then not give it. And so,
Sure.
uh, like, taking positions like that has, I just think it's important for all of us to be on the right side of history.
Do you
And
think
so
it's,
that
do you think
works
it's
very
like
well.
tougher or easier nowadays versus like 20 years ago for promoting your business?
That's a really great question, and I'm going to answer it in two ways. Do I think
Okay.
it's tougher? No, in some respects, because I have so much more experience. So any challenges I'm throwing at now, I've probably been through it before. But is it tougher in terms of that we're going kind of backwards in society? Yeah, I mean, I think we're really living in strange times right now, and not just for LGBTQIA, but for women in general. So I think there's a conservative vein that's running through the country that really needs to be addressed and kind of examined and fleshed out, because I always like to think in terms of the long game and not the short game, because the short game can be very visceral, and you don't always make the best decisions when you're playing the short game. When you're playing the long game, you're much more encompassing and seeing a bigger picture. And I think our society is missing the big picture right now. That we all actually have a lot more in common than we want to acknowledge right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely, it's very, there's a lot happening for
Yeah,
politics, and it's kind
absolutely.
of like the country's divided and here and there. So would you say that, part of your, goals as entrepreneur too is to also make a difference with your festival and your career?
It's really important for me to do that. I'm from an activist family. My mother was very engaged in the civil rights movement, and then later in her life was very involved in the homeless situation in Marin County. And so I grew up with the adage that it's we, not me, that there's a big picture here, and that we need to include everyone, and that nobody should be left not sitting at the table, and that as individuals we have a responsibility to behave that way and model that in our lives, so that we can help create that in the greater picture. And so Yeah, it's always been really important to me to have a mission behind what we do that's greater than just a party or a music festival. That it has to do with inclusivity and inspiration and community and coming together and being the biggest and best that we can be.
Right. Yeah, that's fabulous. Definitely, I think I can see that. And what kind of experience do you want everybody to have when they go to the Dinah? What's your goals for everyone?
I want everyone to just have the most incredible experience imaginable because so many people are coming from areas where they don't have the kind of freedom of expression, of authenticity, of just being exactly who you are as we do in the pockets of California, such as Palm Springs, which is an incredibly liberal city. And so we're commingling people that um, are used to just expressing themselves as they are with people who are living a much more oppressed identities in the cities and towns and states that they're from. And so merging those two together gives us all a different perspective about how precious freedom is and how precious authentic lives and being able to live that is. And so I think people leave the Dinah, it's fun, there's concerts, you're having a blast, but at the same time there's something that's happening that's much more powerful that people leave with, and I think people feel changed after experience 5 days of the Dinah. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean that sounds fantastic, definitely. And that's what I like about the Dinah too is that it's like an inspiring and a fun festival at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
And and then how did you come up with the name for the Dinah?
Well, that I'm going to give credit to the actress Dinah Shore because she lent her name to the Nabisco Dinah Shore golf tournament, and that was specifically, from what I understand, to help raise the profile of women's sports in general, golf in particular, and to help the the purse, the amount won to gain some parity with the men's golf tournaments because they were making so much more money, but it was just as interesting. And we have to give Dinah Shore a lot of credit for that kind of feminist in empowering position that she took
Yeah.
with golf. Because I actually think she was a
Mhm.
tennis player. Um, I've met her daughter Melissa, and because Dinah never said we couldn't use her name, and I think she was just really pro just living out loud and equitableness um and so I'm very proud that we call it the Dinah. We've shortened it. It's not called the Dinah Shore anymore, but I think she's an iconoclastic woman who should always be remembered, not only for her incredible career, but because she has given so much to women's sports to raise the visibility and make sure that women are making as much as the men.
Yeah, and that's a huge issue, definitely. Women's rights and women's empowerment is really important for sure. And even for you, Mariah, as an entrepreneur and a woman, is it, tough for you in ways because of it?
That's a great question. Yes and no. I think it's harder for women, and it certainly has changed throughout my career. Like there were sometimes with corporate sponsors where I'm not going to name any names, but it'd be like, women are responsible for spending money in the household. It's like, yeah, they are. Uh,
Hmm.
so, you're dealing with this kind of very atavistic way of looking at power, that it was really a male paradigm for a long time, and that's shifting, of course, but I had to deal with that a lot. And at the same time, I had a confidence and a comfortableness that just opened doors. I think that was a personal attribute that made it easier for me, and I appreciate that because I know it's not easy for all women, and that when we really dig into the politics of it, um, I think that it's not equitable yet, but we're all working towards that, so that's what's most important.
Right, right, definitely. And I think, you're definitely a pioneer too for women entrepreneurs. I think your story is very encouraging. And Mariah, you know, what, like you kind of described, what characteristics do you think that you have that have helped you to be a successful entrepreneur?
I don't believe in the word no, and I think that's been a very important directive for me as I've moved through my career. That no just isn't something I've ever accepted, because I think you can turn no's into yeses. You just have to either ask a question differently or come from a different perspective. And so that's been a quality that's really helped me. I also think that relationships are what is at the core of any business, successful business. And I think when we forget that, business suffers, because you're just dealing with people at the end of the day, and people need to be seen, valued, and heard. I mean, it's a common statement, but it's just true. There, you can't look at it any other way. And so when we remind ourselves of that as we're engaging in relationships, I think more successful paradigms would embody that perspective. And I've always had that perspective because I'm from a very activist family, and that has served me well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. It sounds like it, and I like how you said that you don't take no for an answer. I think that's important for an entrepreneur, and even in sales. And for your festival, Mariah, is there any unique sales strategies that you use that help you to make it become so huge and successful?
Well, I think that it's like that old movie with what was that guy's name? If Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come. And I think I built it, and the women flocked to it because it had a really important message to it. And I think that the first step's the hardest in any business, but it's really simple, because when you take the first step, the second step naturally follows. But that first step's really hard for people because it's the scary step. And I don't think people like to do that step alone. So, and partnerships oftentimes are sinking ships. And so there's lots of little variables that go into that recipe of how do you make something work. Um, I just think you offer a good product. I think when you talk about sales, sales is easy when you're selling something that stands on its own. That is a good product. It's they sell themselves, and I've always been committed to producing the best and greatest women's and queer women's event in the world. And I don't have to spend as much, for instance, on the talent that I do. They're going to come. But if you're producing the largest women's event in the world, or the most popular, renowned, you have to build the reason behind why it is that way. And so for me, building blocks are also really important, and offering a stellar product that you can't get anywhere else. And you can't duplicate the Dinah. It's just, people have tried. It's hasn't worked yet. Thank God.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. That's those are good points, I think, because like you said, if you everybody wants to just make easy sales, but it's difficult, and then you have a good product, people will enjoy it, they'll buy, and what kind of plans do you have for the Dyna, like for the future? Are you going to expand it, make another one, some other state?
That's it. You ask such good questions. I think it's a mistake
Thanks.
to expand things, and sometimes it works, and then we have these national chains, and that works, like to have a fantastic restaurant in several cities that just resonates. Um, but I think you have to be careful with that, because um, I have a limited market. I mean, it's 10% of the population, and then what percentage of that is actually women identified? Um, so I think that to take the Dinah somewhere else cannibalizes the name. It's not like I haven't thrown parties in other places, but I would never cannibalize. That brand is so strong and it's so powerful. And so I am not one to dilute brands. And so I'm not one to go, oh my God, this works, I'm going to take it somewhere else and make more money. That's just not what motivates me. What motivates me is to create the magical, powerful experience that I do. And that's enough for me. Someone else might go, no, I want an empire. I don't want an empire. I want a really amazing product that people talk about for the rest of the year and can't wait to come back and experience again. And that's what drives me.
Yeah, I mean, you sound really passionate. I'm sure that's also influenced your business and as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
So that's awesome to hear, definitely. And and then, Mariah, so is there anybody that has been inspiring you as an entrepreneur? Anybody that's influenced you?
Sure. My grandfather, to be honest with you, he was a Greek immigrant. He came over the boat when he was 5 to San Francisco. He sold bubble gum in front of the ferry building in San Francisco. And I grew up on stories like that, that the American dream is available for everybody. And so that had a huge influence on me. And I think also just having a really strong level of integrity that you're only as good as your name, and you have to you have to honor the preciousness of that. Um, so reading The Crucible heavily affected me. I'm an English major,
Hmm.
so I had the good
Oh,
fortune
nice.
of
So
reading a
you didn't major in business or anything?
no. I didn't.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I think that's inspiring too. Like, what advice would you give to anybody that wants to start a business or they're kind of struggling in their business and freaking out and don't know how
You
to
know,
make it successful?
I have some good advice. You have to do what you love. And so if you're motivated by making money, maybe you'll be successful. Probably you're not going to be. If you're motivated by what impassions you, you're going to be successful. And I liken oh God, what's that food in New Orleans? Beignet? Does that sound right? It's a little
Jambalaya, maybe gumbo?
with beignet. It's that little pastry that you can
Yeah, I
only
think
get.
that's right. That's the name of it. Yeah.
So the line is around the block for that product. Now, in capitalism, one would say, wow, maybe they need some competition because the line's around the block. But if you're not if you're not impassioned with being a pastry maker, you're now just impassioned with making, something that might help get some of that line over to your place, you're probably not going to do well. But if you are an impassioned pastry maker and you think, wow, they love pastry in New Orleans, and you open your own style of pastry shop, you're not going to have less people going out. You're going to have more people eating pastry. That's just the way that one works. And so I think that you have to really love what you do. You have to be committed to what you're doing, and that will show in the product. But just to do it just to make money, it's just the wrong motivator. And I've seen it happen tons of times. You might have a run and you might make some money, but it doesn't last. It's not gonna last. I have a music festival that it's in its 32nd year. I mean, how many music festivals have lasted for 32 years, and it's lasted this long, and it's stronger than ever because I love producing it, and I love the reasons that I produce it. And so my message to anybody who's having trouble is, are you in the right industry? Are you really doing what gets you up in the morning and just excited to get to work? Because if you are, you'll be fine. And if you're not, it's just not the right motivator.
Wow, yeah. That's really powerful. Definitely, I think there's a lot of good advice in what you just described, Mariah, because I think that is something people need to question. I think that does make sense why you're successful in your business. And why don't you tell us a bit about what people can expect, how the Dinah's going to be this month coming up?
People can expect the most fun, adventuresome, community-based music festival with some incredible music. We have Princess Nokia, who is just a breakout artist. We have Dochi, another breakout artist. They're going to become household names. G Flip, who's already famous in her own right, and then an artist Femme, and then we have two young artists, Xana and Kiana Key, who we're giving some stage time to. But the pool parties are so fun, and the night parties are so glamorous, and there's just this excitement that happens. So from Wednesday through Sunday, it's just a non-stop program of events, that help create community and help celebrate who we are, our lives, our authenticity, feeling good about ourselves, just, our femaleness. And that's an inclusive statement. So, if you identify with your femaleness, this is the place for you. So they're all feel good aspirations, and we love my entire staff. We love producing it because it's our feel good too, to get to be able to do this for people. It's the best job.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds like a huge blast. And when is it going to happen this month? What are the dates, Mariah?
Sure, it's right around the corner, September 20th through the 24th. Um, at Margaritaville is our main hotel, and our overflow is Doubletree. And then we're at Reforma Nightclub. It's a new glamorous nightclub in town, and Chill Bar. So we just have nonstop events going on, and yeah, everyone is welcome.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Mariah, for being on the show. You have
Oh, it's my pleasure.
yeah, absolutely. You're so inspiring, and you have an amazing festival. So everybody go check out the Dinah.
All right. Thanks so much, both of you. And I hope maybe I'll see you both there. You're
And
invited.
before we lose you, let's
All right.
let's give out a website and tickets and all that kind of stuff.
Got
Where
it.
do they go?
The website is thedinah.com, and you can get tickets there. There's a little link that says buy tickets. But you can also read all about it, the event program, our entertainment. So it's all there.
Okay, the Dinah, and it's coming up when again? What's the dates?
September 20th through the 24th.
Okay, all right. Well, that's the place to be. I'm telling you, as somebody who inherited a house out in that area, my parents came from the Midwest. They had no idea any of these things existed. In the same way that people look at Coachella now, that's an iconic festival that's been there for 30 years. Coachella's been around for, what, 10 maybe or something here.
Yeah, a little bit longer, but not much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It has that same kind of movement, the same side. It packs the town. Let's put it that way. It
Yes,
packs the town.
packs the town, for sure.
Definitely does. All right, thanks for joining us. Okay, Ashley, anything we got to do? Shout out to your book here. Let's give a little
Yeah,
shout out.
that's right, everybody. This is my book, Ferocious Sales Skills, and you can get it on Amazon, iTunes, and Barnes & Noble websites.
I think we're talking to a couple of people who have ferocious sales skills. I can't imagine it was easy walking into a hotel and saying, I'm taking over the whole thing. I'm going to book the whole hotel here. Don't sell any other rooms but to me here this weekend here. I don't know about that. That took some ferocious sales skills. All right, thanks for joining us. We'll see you.
Thank you.
All right, hang.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. If she doesn't bring in the most interesting people, I don't know who does. Tune in each and every time as Ashley V taps into her Rolodex and brings us the most amazing people doing the most incredible things right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio. Streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.